Welcome. Right, so we're going to be doing some more long division. Right, so I recorded the previous podcast last year, and I thought I would just add on to that one. All right, so we're going to be dividing 3x cubed minus x squared minus 3x plus 1 by x plus 1. This is our divisor. So that's going to go outside. Right, x plus 1. And then we're dividing into 3x cubed minus x squared minus 3x plus 1. Right, so when we're dividing using long division like this for polynomials, we always want to, there we go, I wanted to get rid of the line there. We always want to get rid of the leading term, right? So we use the leading term in our divisor to get rid of the leading term in the number we're dividing into, our dividend. All right, so what would I have to multiply x by to get 3x cubed? All right, well, I've got a coefficient of 1, so obviously I'm going to have to multiply by 3. All right, and then my divisor has one factor of x. I'm dividing into an expression that has 3 factors of x. I'm going to need 2 more factors of x. All right, so 3x squared times x gives us 3x cubed. That'll get rid of our first term. And of course, because we're dividing by a binomial, we have to multiply both terms. But we always worry about our leading term. All right, so 3x squared times 1 is going to be 3x squared. And then we subtract, which means to add the opposite. Because we want to make sure we distribute our negative. So I just think that's the easiest way to make sure is I just change subtraction to adding the opposite, which is actually what subtraction is. 3x cubed minus 3x cubed, that's 0. So we got rid of our 3x or our x cubes. Negative x squared minus 3x squared, that's going to give us negative 4x squared. And then we bring down the next term. We need 2 terms because our divisor has 2 terms. Right? And we want to get rid of the leading term. So we ask ourselves, what do we have to multiply x by to get negative 4x squared? Right? So, well, of course, we're going to need a negative 4, right? And our divisor has 1 factor of x. We're dividing into something with 2 factors. We're going to need 1 more factor. Then we multiply. Negative 4x times x gives us a negative 4x squared. Negative 4x times 1 is negative 4x. And then we subtract, which means to add the opposite. Right? So negative 4x squared plus 4x squared, that's 0. Negative 3x plus 4x is x. And then we need 2 terms, so we're going to bring down our last term. And then we ask ourselves, what would we have to multiply x by to get x? Of course, that would just be 1. So x times x gives us x. And then x times x, excuse me. 1 times x gives us x. 1 times 1 gives us 1. And now we subtract, which means to add the opposite. And you can see we would have 0. So x plus 1 is a factor of 3x cubed minus x squared minus 3x plus 1, since the remainder is 0. So if we were to take, what that means is if we were to take x plus 1 and multiply 3x squared minus 4x plus 1. So if we were to take our divisor and multiply it by our quotient, we would get our original equation since x plus 1 is a factor. I'm trying to, and that's a little too close. My numbers are swishy. I think I should have oriented the board a little bit before I started recording. There we go. And let's see if I can get this right. So there, that doesn't look too bad. Equals 3x cubed minus x squared minus 3x plus 1. Right? And if you want, you can test that by multiplying those 2 numbers together, those 2 expressions together, but you would get that particular polynomial if we were to distribute. Right? So one thing I haven't mentioned, I don't believe I've mentioned, if we were missing a term, so let's say there was no x squared, right? Let's just say that no x squared here, right? No x squared. Right? Now I couldn't add a 3x squared to anything but an x squared. So if there was no x squared, I would have to represent that as a 0x squared. So I would have like terms I could combine. Right? I couldn't just skip the x squareds and try to combine that 3x squared with a 3x, because that won't work. They have to have the same exponent. Right? So we'll still see that come up, oops, a little later on, but let's get rid of it because we did have an x squared. All right, let's look at the next one. And I think this is the last one on this tape. All right, so we're dividing 2x plus 1, we're dividing 4x cubed plus 8x squared minus 3x plus 5 by 2x plus 1. All right, we have to get rid of the leading term. So what would we have to multiply 2x by to get 4x cubed? Right, well, of course, 2 times 2 is 4, so we're going to need a factor of 2. Right, and then we're dividing, our divisor has only one factor of x. We're dividing into an expression with 3 factors. We're going to need 2 more factors of x. And then we multiply. 2x squared times 2x gives us 4x cubed. All right, so we've gotten rid of the first term. And then 2x squared times 1 is 2x squared. And then we subtract, which means to add the opposite. 4x cubed minus 4x cubed, that's 0. 8x squared minus 2x squared is 6x squared. We need 2 terms because our divisor has 2 terms. If your divisor had 3 terms, you would need to have 3 terms here. Right? But we only need 2. So we'll bring down the negative 3x. All right, and we have to get rid of the 6x squared. And we ask ourselves, what would we have to multiply 2x by to get 6x squared? Right? So, of course, 2 times 3 is going to give you 6. And we need one more factor of x. 3x times 2x gives us 6x squared. 3x times 1 is 3x. And then we subtract, which means to add the opposite. Negative 3x, well, 6x squared minus 6x squared, that's 0. Negative 3x plus negative 3x, not 0x, but negative 6x. And then we need our last term, so we're going to bring down the 5. And now what would we have to multiply 2x by to get negative 6x? Of course, 2 times 3 is 6. We're going to need 2 times negative 3, right, because we have negative 6. Negative 3 times 2x gives us negative 6x. Negative 3 times 1 is a negative 3. And then we subtract, which means to add the opposite. Negative 6x plus 6x is 0. 5 plus 3 is 8. So you see 2x plus 1 is not a factor of 4x cubed plus 8x squared minus 3x plus 5, right? Because we did not get a remainder of 0. We got a remainder of 8. So our answer, remember, is our quotient. So that's going to be 2x squared plus 3x minus 3 plus our remainder, which is 8, over our divisor, which is 2x plus 1. So that's how many times it went in because we had a remainder, right? And so that is all there really is to long division, right? You can use long division for any expression at all. Divide any polynomial expression by another polynomial of equal or lesser degree. Right? Usually it's going to be a lesser degree because we're not going to end up with very much if they had the same degree. And your divisor cannot have a greater degree. Oh, I thought that was my last one. We have one more. We have one more. Now, this is our last one. And this one might be, I think it's in your notes actually. All right, so 6x to the 5th plus 2x cubed plus 4x squared plus 10 divided by x squared plus 2x plus 1. This is a good one to divide by because now you see that we can divide by something that has more than just 2 terms. Right? So our divisor is x squared plus 2x plus 1. So we have 3 terms in the divisor. We're always going to need 3 terms to divide into. And we have some missing terms. Notice there's no x to the 4th. Right? So we're going to need a 0 as a coefficient for x to the 4th because we need that as a placeholder. Right? It's kind of like if you write the number 605. right? You have no 10s, right? But you need that 0 as a placeholder, right? You can't write this. That has a different meaning, right? So we need that 0 as a placeholder for us. And we really need it so we can combine like terms. Right? And are we missing anybody else? Yes, we are. We don't have an x term. So we have a 0x. Right? If we were missing somebody in the divisor, we would do the same thing. We'd represent them with a coefficient of 0. So missing terms, no x to the fourth or x term. You must represent missing terms with coefficients of 0x to the fourth and 0x. Otherwise, everything else is exactly the same when you divide by 3 terms as 2 terms, and when you divide into something that has some missing terms. Right? So we're going to have 6x to the 5th plus 2x, plus 0x to the 4th. I even wrote it up there so I would not forget him. 0x to the 4th plus 2x cubed plus 4x squared plus 0x plus 10. Right? And now what would we have to multiply x by? What would we have to multiply x squared by to get 6x to the 5th? Right? Well, because we always worry about the leading terms. Right? The leading term and our leading term. Right? So obviously we're going to have to multiply by 6, right? Because we have a coefficient of 1. X squared has 2 factors of x. We need 5 factors, so we're going to need 3 more factors of x. 6x cubed times x squared gives us 6x to the 5th. Right, you have 5 factors of x there. 6x squared plus 2x would be 12x to the 4th. And see, that's why we need that 0, so we can combine it with 12x to the 4th. And then 6x cubed times 1 is 6x cubed. And then we subtract, which means to add the opposite. I got to distribute to everything. 6x to the 5th minus 6x to the 5th, that's 0x to the 5th. 0x to the 4th minus 12x to the 4th is negative 12x to the 4th. Right? So we were able to combine because we represented the missing x to the 4th with a 0. And then 2x cubed minus 6x cubed is going to be negative 4x cubed. And we only have 2 terms. We need 3 terms because there's 3 terms in our divisor. We're going to bring down the next term, so down comes the 4x squared. All right, so we still worry about just the first term. What would we have to multiply x squared by to get negative 12x to the 4th? Okay, well, of course, we're going to need a negative 12, right? Because our coefficient's not right. We only have a coefficient of 1. We need negative 12. And now we have 2 factors. X to the 4th has 4 factors. We're going to need 2 more factors. All right, now we multiply. Negative 12x squared times x squared is going to give us negative 12x to the 4th. Negative 12x squared plus 2x, right, that's going to be negative 24x cubed. And negative 12x squared times 1 is negative 12x squared. And then we subtract, which means to add the opposite. Negative 12x to the 4th plus 12x to the 4th, that's 0. Negative 4x cubed plus 24x cubed is going to be 20x cubed. And then 4x squared plus 12x squared, right, because that was a negative and we subtracted it. Subtracting a negative makes that a positive. That's going to be 16x squared, and we don't have enough terms. So we bring down the 0x. And we ask ourselves, what would we have to multiply x squared by to get 20x cubed? Of course, we're going to need a coefficient of 20. And we're going to need 1 more factor of x. 20x times x squared gives us 20x cubed. 20x times 2x gives us 40x squared. And 20x times 1 is 20x. And then we subtract, which means to add the opposite. So 20x cubed minus 20x cubed, that's 0. 16x squared minus 40x squared is going to be negative 24x squared. And then 0x minus 20x is a negative 20x. And we bring down the very last term, the 10. What we have to multiply x squared by to get negative 24x squared? Of course, just a negative 24. Negative 24 times x squared is a negative 24x squared. Negative 24 times 2x is negative 48x. And negative 24 times 1 is negative 24. I think you can see right now that we're going to have a remainder. So we're going to subtract, which means to add the opposite. What happened to my plus sign there? All right, I can't, all right, so there I kind of moved it over anyway. That's a plus now, right, because it was a negative. And we're subtracting a negative, so that makes it a plus. Negative 24x squared plus 24x squared, that's 0. 20x plus negative 20x plus 48x is a 28x. And then 10 plus 24 is 34. All right, so our answer is going to be 6x cubed minus 12x squared plus 20x minus 24. Okay, squeeze it in. Plus 28x plus 34 divided by, I needed to write a whole lot smaller. Just going to squeeze everybody in. Divided by our divisor, which is x squared plus 2x plus 1. I fit it in. There we go. All right, so that's a big answer. Right? And we have a pretty big remainder this time. Right? Notice the remainder, the degree is smaller than our divisor. So we can't divide 28x by x squared, right? Because it has a higher power. And now, that's all I have right now for long division. Right? So I've showed you how to divide by 2 terms, by 3 terms. What do we do when we have missing terms? I think you've got this. There is a whiteboard practice. However, I'm going to combine this, I think, with maybe the next whiteboard practice. Maybe I'll just post it as is, right? And so they'll just be the 2 whiteboard practices together, which are kind of related. And you'll see that in the next podcast. But this is the whiteboard practice for long division. And this bottom part here, that's just an example to remind you of the steps if you have a remainder. All right, and the steps for dividing. Bye for now.